Bruins Beat is brought to you by Prizepicks.
And welcome into the Bruins Beat, presented by Prizepicks. Go use that promo code CLNS to get $50 back when you play your first $5 lineup. We're also presented by CLNS Media. Make sure to go check out all our great stuff. Bruins Ringside YouTube channel, subscribe. We got podcasts, Poke the Bear, Bruins Beat, Pucks with Hags throughout the offseason. And then obviously Patriots Press Pass, Celtics All Access, all that great stuff. Make sure to go subscribe to those channels as well. I'm Evan Marinofsky, joined today by Court Lalonde. Court.
Hey, buddy.
What is up?
I think I ran out of fingers trying to count how many podcasts the CLNS has.
It's too many.
Oh my!
You need you need multiple hands at that point. How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good. It's you have your holiday tomorrow, and we had our holiday on Tuesday, which
Happy
is
Canada
weird.
Day.
At least you got yours on a Friday. Ours falling on a Tuesday this year was just it threw a monkey wrench in everything.
Yeah, it's tough when I know down here it's tough when the 4th lands on a non-Thursday or Friday. But I would also say, and I might be in the minority with this, I'm not a huge fan of holidays where you feel like you have to do something. Like New Year's, it's like you gotta go to a New Year's Eve party, and it's like those are always kind of the most average things you do. And and maybe it's because I don't have a vacation house. I don't have a place I can really go to on the 4th, so I'm not like, oh, I'm going, to Maine or the Cape or wherever. So I like the 4th. It's a nice little break, but in terms of days on the calendar, it's not high on the list for me.
Yeah, I thought it was like the big deal in the US. Like everybody,
it is.
America.
Oh, it is for most people.
Oh yeah, like do the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's not even so much that. It's for me, it's more so just like, oh, we got to do something. And
yeah, that's I agree with you on New Year's. Like New Year's,
yes,
the greatest thing that ever happened is becoming a dad because I was like, oh, I got the kid, I can't
go. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry. It's like Halloween.
Yes, I'm with you on Halloween,
and I hate going to Halloween parties. It's just my thing, and so every year I'm like, oh, it's my birthday. Sorry, I just want to do something for me. Sorry, have fun though. Have a good time.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Well, around here, the best part is people will be like, oh, we should go to this bar or this nightclub on New Year's. I'm like, okay.
Last Drop.
Oh yeah, Last Drop. Now Last Drop would be an elite New Year's spot. But it's the best when people are like, oh, I want to go to this bar or wherever, and I'm like, okay, what's that entail? Oh, the tickets are like $100.
Yeah, then no.
I'm like, all right, well though, I'm all set. I'm good. I don't need to spend.
That's like the price of a Bruins game.
Literally.
Yeah.
Literally. And the question is is it worth it or not?
Oh, well, I guess we're gonna look at that. You alluded to everything we're gonna talk about.
We'll dive right in. I said this to you before we started recording. Every guest I usually have a rundown, things I want to hit on. I've learned when it's you and I, we just kind of go and we see where it takes us, and we end up in a spot. How do you feel about? Because obviously you have the draft, you have the free agency. Dev camp just wrapped up, so we can kind of touch on some of those prospects if you want to. What's your barometer? How are you feeling right now about the Bruins?
I went from trade deadline where I was like, oh my God, it's changing. This franchise is changing. This is happening. They're doing the thing that every team, we all as armchair GMs, because that's what we are.
Oh,
as armchair GMs, we're always just like, trade this guy. Like, I'm going to trade the whole team. And then Don Sweeney did it. And there was still that contingent that was like, I can't believe he traded Brad Marchand, blah, blah, blah. This is terrible. And even at the time when you think about it, Marchand was injured, all that. Marchand doesn't win a cup. I don't think people would cry as much. I'm happy as a pig and poop that he went and won a cup. Like, heck, my wife wants a Marchand Florida shirt. That's fine. I'm all with it. But I thought Don Sweeney did a masterful job at the trade deadline. It actually gave me a sense of, okay, you know what? The season stunk. It is what it is. I thought originally they should have done the teardown when Bergeron retired and Krejci retired. I was like, well, this is the year. You have max value on these players. You move them. But Don Sweeney did a great job. The value he got for Charlie Coyle that Colorado couldn't even recoup 2 months later was unbelievable. The value he got for Brandon Carlo, a first in Fraser Minton, oh my God, he did phenomenal. Even the value for Brad Marchand. He's injured, 37 years old. Everybody thought he was done, even though he had a great 4 Nations. I was a little weird by everybody thinking that. And they still got a first-round pick, so we're fine. The draft comes. I'm trying to paint a picture here. The draft comes. they draft James Hagens. Like, I'm surprised you're not even jumping up and down just by me saying his name.
I've run out of energy at that
Yeah,
point.
I am with you though. You have made me a believer. So like he's our Justin Bieber now, and
A believer.
I'm a believer. I think I'm all in on him. I think you said it the other day with Connor. Like he's coming into BC next year. He's gonna be 190 pounds. He's gonna score a ton of points. He's not gonna have those two wingers, Leonard and who was the other winger? Yeah, he's gonna be the guy scoring goals instead of the guy dishing. He's gonna find a new arsenal in his game. I'm all in on James Hagens. The Boston Bruins getting him at 7 is still crazy, to be totally honest. It's still weird. But I think they would have got a great pick if they picked in the top 10 period. But still, great draft, and then getting more in the second round. I was all in. I was like, oh my God. They kept talking about new era. Don Sweeney was saying all the right things. And he said juice. He's talking about his juice that he got. And I was just like, oh man. Like Tanner Jeannot, and I know it's beating a dead horse, but what were they thinking? Like, I don't get it. They spend so much money, and then Pete Blackburn changed some of my take on this. He did a great talk about talking about how much the Bruins spend on bottom 6 compared to the top 6. And it's crazy. And they do it year after year. And I think they would have had a fine free agent if they don't sign Tanner. I don't think anybody would be mad. Even if Jeannot got like a 2-year deal, I think the vitriol that we have towards them right now wouldn't be there. There's some that love this, think it's the greatest thing in the world. And they're like, he's going to punch people in the face. He's going to beat people up. And I put out a stat the other day. The top 10 teams in fighting last year, only 2 of them made the playoffs.
I saw that.
That's a good one. Like, it's crazy.
It is. And it's not surprising either, because I think you and I are in lockstep on kind of where the game is.
Yes.
Not even just where it's headed. I'm with you in free agency. I mean, the dust has settled. We're a couple days away, a couple days removed from it. I don't understand the 5 years on Jeannot. I think there is no moves on the first 2 years it was reported. I don't understand that. Throughout the year, it's funny because I had said, they're missing veteran guys in that room. It's clear that they're missing, guys they had before who were veteran voices and kind of keep things together, and guys that McAvoy and Pastrnak can lean on as budding leaders. And they didn't have those this past year. So getting some character guys at this free agent, like the free agency class stunk, getting some character guys is good. Like, you want to get Corrali? Sure. AC Mont, fine. Like, as one-offs, terrific. And I'm in agreement with you. Like, if Jeannot was a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal, it's like, okay, cool. Like, take a flyer on him. He, a couple of years ago, had a really good year. Hope he forechecks hard and makes an impact and this and that. And sure, fine. But all together. And the other thing, Court, too, is like, you got all these bottom 6 guys at free agency. You also have a bunch of bottom 6 guys on your roster currently. Like, you qualified Johnny Beecher. You have Kastelik. You have Hustendinov. You even throw in like Poitras and Mitten are young guys. Not saying they're 4th liners, but 3rd line looks pretty good for them. And like, that to me is where I'm like, I like the reality is that $3.4 million on Jeannot is not going to hamstring them. I mean, that's not
at all.
This isn't the Bacchus contract or anything. Like,
it's more comparable though. You can compare.
I mean, it's the same. And
also,
years,
I looked it up. It is a first 2 years no trade, and then it's modified no trade for the remainder of the deal. That's that's even better.
And that's where it's. I don't understand that. Why was that 5 years? I'm wondering if someone in there thinks that there's a ton of untapped potential, but he is 28, so I don't know where that untapped potential is, Court.
I don't know either. It's actually gotten worse every year. Every year.
Yeah, and my big takeaway, like, since the dust has settled and I've read different columns and I've had time to think and all these different things, they know they're not going to be good next year. I think they know that. They know that they're not going to be great, and they know that this is going to take time, and they just need to be better at communicating it, at saying, look, this is a process. And I think this, to me, it comes down to the draft. You heard a lot of rumblings. I don't think there were any like confirmed reports, but rumblings about the Islanders in that 7th pick or another team in that 7th pick. And when I think of, like, even just use the Noah Dobson example, right? Like, would you do Dobson for 7 or things like that? I think they got trade offers. for that 7th pick that probably had established players in them that could have added to Lindholm and McAvoy and those guys and tried to win now. And I think they went the other alternative route, which I think is correct in saying, no, let's go get the best prospect available, which ended up being James Hagens, and let's commit to that route. Let's commit to as Cam Neely said, building back better and bolstering your prospect pool and all those different things. And I think that's the right mindset to have. But I think that's my big thing is that they're not, like I've said, best case scenario, they're contending for a wild card spot with guys on this roster being better next season. But I don't like. That's the biggest thing to me is that they are not. I don't think they're going to be a good team next year, and I don't think I'm saying anything new by saying that. But I think free agency really drives that home.
Yeah, well, Elliot Friedman reported they got calls on 7, and every time they got a call, they just said no. And the Islanders really tried to get it. I wouldn't doubt that they tried to move Noah Dobson for 7 and something, and the Bruins, exactly what you said. Don Sweeney's like, does he make our team better? Yes, but does that even matter? And I look at a lot of what they did where Sweeney is like, he said, what did he say? He said, well, we're going to win a lot of 2-1 games. We're going to win a lot of 2-1 games. We're going to play hard. And the goal is to make the playoffs. And I'm sure the goal is to make the playoffs for him because that's his job. He's got 2 years left on that deal. But if they finish in the bottom percentage of the league again, I wouldn't doubt him being fired. And which is crazy because I'm actually in the club where I don't think he's done a bad job. And I think there's more to all the signings. I think both Arvidsson being traded for and Jeannot being signed had a lot to do with the new coach. But I also think that Cam Neely had his it's all over that Tanner Jeannot thing. But, it's just way too much. But I look at everything they did and I don't understand because the wild card, they're going against the Montreal Canadiens and the Ottawa Senators. And I look at those 2 teams and I say Montreal's a better team. As much as I want to hear it. Yes, we have David Pastrnak is better than anybody on the Montreal Canadiens roster, but Montreal has 2 solid young goaltenders. They have 2 guys on the back end now that can be power play specialists, and they're going to have their PP1 and their PP2 are going to have a guy who can move the puck on the back end. Lane Hudson's crazy. They're going to have Cole Caulfield. They're going to have Suzuki. Like, they have a very good team. Demidov, like they're very good next year.
Their rebuild has worked. Their rebuild worked.
They did. Their retool. Yeah, they're more of a rebuild. I also thought it was interesting. Did you see what Blumel's quote was about the Boston Bruins? I had a choice between 2 rebuilds, Pittsburgh or Boston, and I chose Boston because of Pasternak's call. But he said I had a choice between 2 rebuilds. And he said Pittsburgh and Boston. So the players, as much as Don Sweeney says it's a retool, and I still think it is, until you trade Pastrnak and McAvoy, it's not a full rebuild. But the players look at Boston Bruins as a rebuild. So the players going into this making the playoffs is gravy. And I'm going to be selfish here and always got my GM hat on, my GM couch hat. If they don't make the playoffs, they have a better chance of getting McKenna. So like, okay, like I'm all in.
Well, that was one of the things like me and Connor Ryan and Scott McLaughlin and Ty Anderson were kind of like discussing this week at Dev Camp was like, where are they picking next year? Like where with their own first round pick, you have the Leafs first round pick, and that's probably somewhere in the 20s, hopefully like 2021.
They could fall flat on their face with no Marner.
Never know. You never know. You called it, by the way, Marner to Vegas. That was always
I know. It's almost like I knew that one. Yeah.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah.
But then, in terms of where the Bruins pick, I think realistically it's like what, 13, 14 overall. I think that's probably like the most realistic if things
11 to 15, anywhere in that range. Yep.
But it's not out of the question that they're in and amongst the lottery where we're sitting here, 10 months from now saying, be nice if they could get like the 5th pick or they're, the 7th worst team next year or whatever. And in that case, you mentioned a thing just recently or just now about Sweeney potentially being fired if they don't make the playoffs this year. You really think he could be out if they don't make the playoffs?
You get 2 different, the way Cam talks about the future. Don talks about the presence, which is something I noticed after trade deadline day, after the draft, and after this last press conference. The quotes from Cam are all about the future. And the quotes from Don are about, we're going to win games 1-2, 2-1 games. We're going to be tight, but we think we're a playoff team. that we're bringing these players in to play the right way. Honestly, worst cliche. It's almost like I'm giving 110%. When people say play the right way, I'm just like, that makes me want to throw up. Like, they're in the NHL. Like, they play the right way. Like, please stop saying that.
Yes.
But he keeps saying things about the present. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but the Jacobs are not going to want to have no playoff revenue 2 years in a row. Like, they're not cheap anymore, as everybody loves to say they're cheap, but they also don't want to miss out on the money. If they do not get the next 4 nations, whenever they announce the home cities, which I still think is, oddly enough, I still think Boston might get it again. It's probably, or it's going to be New York. If there's going to be a U.S. city, you could have Buffalo and Toronto, but I don't know how they're going to do it if they're going to split between Canada and the United States, unless they do the West Coast, right? You could have Vancouver
Yep.
and so on. Anyways, but the Jacobs not getting all that. Yes, you got your they're going to get to split the gate on the Stadium Series this year, but they want that revenue. And bringing guys like Corrali back and Tanner Jeannot, another thing about Tanner Jeannot, he fights. And that puts people in their seats, and they make people think, rah, rah, like, we want to be with the Bruins. They're changing their jerseys this year. Another thing, I was like, oh, I'm so shocked that they were doing that. But anyways, that's a lot of revenue that they're getting on this team. So you got to look at the 2 factors. But Don Sweeney pretty much kept saying, like, we expect to make the playoffs. I don't know why he keeps saying it, because I look at this roster and I'm like, okay, Viktor Arvidsson's your second line right winger. I was just trying to, before we started this, I was like, okay, your top line is Geekie, Lindholm, Pasternak. Everybody
Agreed.
see a lot of people putting these things together, and they have Zaka, and I don't understand. Literally at the very end of the year, Lindholm and Pasternak and Geekie was one of the best lines in the NHL in the last month of the league.
Legitimately, yes. You don't break those 3 up. And
No,
it seems like you've unlocked Lindholm too with putting with Pastrnak.
which didn't happen at the beginning of the season, and then he goes to the World Cup and he's on fire again. So you keep those 3 together. Then your second line is Casey Middlestat, which is, that's a thing. With Viktor Arvidsson and Pavel Zacha. And that's what scares me when I look at this lineup. You mentioned Matthew Poitras. I thought James Hagens being drafted said Matthew Poitras done. Where is he fit? Yeah, unless he plays right wing. Because Fraser Mitten's your third line center.
This is what I keep going back to is, and I tweeted this after the free agency, like, all these bottom 6 guys coming in, you're taking, you're not taking the spots of young guys, but you're limiting how much they can move up in that lineup. Where's that leave Poitras? Like, Fraser Mitten, you went out and acquired, you liked him, you like where he's at. He fits as a third line center. Like, that's what kind of his profile as a third line center.
Buddies with Connor Bedard and Macklin Celebrini. Did not see that coming.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
he was
training together. That. Yeah.
I saw that. And so, but, like, you're right in that, like, if Poitras wants to play right wing, if they like Poitras right wing, then that makes sense. We can probably find a spot for him. But I don't know
spot
how.
At center. There's no spot
at center. You're not putting him as your 4th line center. And even if you wanted to, you still have Kastelik. You have Beecher. You now have Corrali. Like,
you have Hagens next year, not this year, people.
Hagens next year. I agree with you. I'm in complete agreement there. And I don't think Poitras's ready to be a top 6 center yet. And even if he was, you said it, Hagens next year, Elias Lindholm now. You have Zacha and Middlestat as well. Would you trade Matt Poitras right now, or would you wait and let camp play out and see how things go from there?
I think Matt Poitras could help you acquire a guy on a team that has an expiring deal on his entry level that's looking for a big raise next year. And the Bruins could move Poitras and something else to a team that's not in the playoffs that have like the Montreal Canadiens getting Noah Dobson this year he fell into their lap. And that happens every year where a team like the Islanders, who are not in contention, that are doing differently. I wouldn't say San Jose. I think San Jose they've gotten to that echelon where they're just building a roster, and they signed Orlov today.
So much cap. Oh my
Orlov
God.
made so much sense for them today. But there are teams that could be in a different trajectory that are looking to dump a guy on an entry-level team and not giving him a raise. I think Poitras later on in that season can be that guy. Don Sweeney kept talking about trades and then actually only does one and then does a bunch of signings. Still kind of annoyed me. But don't say one thing and then do the opposite. I would think that he's still exploring trades, and I would think Matthew Poitras is probably one of his biggest trade assets right now. Most valuable if you're going to be packaging a pick and a player. He's a guy where people are like, well, yeah. Like, we'll have him in our organization. I look at their depth chart now, and I just don't see where he fits. I was talking to Dominic Tiano about it, and he said, yes, Matthew Poitras played right wing in junior. He keeps saying in interviews that he never played right wing. He definitely played right wing in junior. Okay, so now he's your third line right winger. So then where's Lysell fit in? You have two guys that need to play in the top 6 for them to be effective. Who are you choosing?
And are they effective enough to be top 6 wingers in the NHL?
Correct. You just
That's
brought in
where
Arvidsson. You just pretty much told everybody you don't think they are, or at least the coach doesn't, because you brought in Viktor Arvidsson. And I guess, yes, Arvidsson is not, he's nothing special, but I still think he can get you like 10 to 15 goals this year, and that's nothing to shake a stick at. They needed offense. It's the only thing they got, which is just hilarity in itself. Maybe Blumel. I still think Blumel is like this sneaky good signing.
I am
Maybe
intrigued by
Steve's.
him.
I'm very intrigued by Blumel because, one, his comment about Pasternak making the phone call to bring him here. I look at what he did down in Texas last year. He is just, all he is gas and scoring. That's all this guy is. He's fast as lightning and he scores goals. And so I'm like, well, that's exactly what the Bruins need. So if he comes out of the camp and he's your third line right winger, again, one, the Providence Bruins are going to have Lysell, Poitras. They're going to have a good team. But I would think that your third line is going to be Husadinov, Minton, and whoever takes that third spot on the right side. Because Tanner Jeannot, everybody keeps putting him in on the third line. He's not. He's the fourth liner. People, stop this.
I know. 5 years for a fourth liner. It's like Lou Amarillo's running the show.
You just have Kastelik and Jeannot on your fourth line, just punching people all the time.
Yeah. Again, like, and look, like I said it earlier, like with the veteran leadership and veteran presence, is like if Tanner Jeannot can bring a little bit of that, we know Corrali can, if AC Mont can, like, all right, there's definitely value there because, if you're not going to be in the playoffs or, at least you have that in the room, but it's not worth 5 years with no trades or no trades in the first 2 years. It's just, I don't think it's worth that. Arvids is interesting because someone mentioned this idea to me. I forget who it was. I don't want to pretend like I'm stealing the idea, but Arvidsson has 1 year left at $4 million. And I am curious, Court, like people keep mentioning, oh, what if, you could deal AC Mon at the deadline or Corrali at the deadline, let's say, if they're having good seasons and get a team to overpay for them. But like, if Arvidsson does well for you and is productive and shows himself as can play on the power play and all these different things, and he's shot first, it's an interesting trade deadline.
He 100%. Sure. I talked about it in one of my videos. He's a 5th round pick that now is a 3rd round pick. Easy at the deadline. As long as he's got 10 plus goals and a team needs a little bit of offense, they need something, they need some scoring on their third line for the playoffs. Viktor Arvidsson could get you a 3rd round pick, no problem. Maybe even a 2nd round pick.
I was just say, I think he could get you more. Like,
yeah.
The deadline's weird. People forget how wild it is. Like, I could
Charlie Coyle, Zellers, and a 1st round pick. This is the craziest thing ever. We're just
like Arvidsson. Yeah, Arvidsson, a guy who can step in and be on your 2nd power play unit, on your 3rd line as a right winger. Like, I could see him getting a 2nd and a prospect, or like, could a team be crazy enough to give a 1st? Wouldn't shock me.
I think he's a great. I think you're bang on. Like, I think he's definitely at the trade deadline. He gets moved. There's no reason to re-sign him because then you're really saying that Lysell, all these guys, and I would Merkulov getting a qualifying offer was only asset management. They have no aspirations for this kid. Too long they talk about his qualifying offer. He is gone. As good as gone. They're going to try and he'll be a guy they'll try and trade for pieces. And I think Matthew Poitras is that other guy. I think Lysell, they really hope can have a great camp and be something, but maybe doesn't make the team out of camp now because Corrali's your 4th line right winger. Like, I just look at this roster and I'm like, where are these people fitting? I think there's a spot on the 3rd line right wing, and that is it. Like, I don't know where else there's a hole because Beecher's that rotation on the 4th line between Corrali, Kastelik, and Jeannot.
Well, this is what I keep going back to is like, I think these free agent moves, these free agent signings signal that I don't know how much they believe in their young guys. Lysell, Poitras, Merkulov.
Agreed.
Even Minton. Like, you just went out and got Minton and
I think they believe in him.
I think they do.
They really do. 3rd line.
I think they clearly do. When he was up at the end of last season and they acquired him in that Carlo deal, like, I have no doubt they believe in him, but they did go out and get a ton of guys who could do what he's going to do. And my whole thing, Court, is like, if you're going to have this year where it's like a bridge year in a sense, it's a retool year. I want to see what young guys can bring. And you can't have a roster full of young guys. I get that. But like, I better see one of Minton or Poitras in the lineup for most of the season, or at least getting a considerable amount of games, you want to see what you have before a guy like Hagens comes up. And maybe they believe, I don't know if Poitras can do it. I don't know if Lysell can do it. I don't know if Merkulov can do it. And I think these moves certainly signal that. But
or do you trade Middlestat, who was a throw-in the Coyle deal, which is hilarious. Everybody's always like, well, he was the piece. I was like, no, Zeller's and the pick were the piece. They just wanted Middlestat's contract out the door, and we took it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. I want to continue this. Because this is an interesting thing on trades, and we're looking ahead, but I think people enjoy that.
Well, what else are we going to talk about?
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. This is the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of fun stuff, our friends over at Prizepicks. Prizepicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. On Prizepicks, you mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite basketball players with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. Prizepicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season. And you'll be listening to this on a Friday, and it is Flex Friday. Make sure you opt in and tap the checkbox in your lineup builder to be eligible for the protected play. Choose squares from any game on the board, and if your lineup does not win, you get your net losses back in promo funds up to your promo limit as soon as the lineup settles. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. Run your game over at Prizepicks. Court, it's funny, actually, at Dev Camp, a person there came up to me as they were leaving Warrior, and they're like, do I have a brand new big long pod for the drive down to the Cape? And I was like, well, I'm actually recording it probably right after you drive down to the Cape, unfortunately. So hopefully this will be out by then, because you and I can go for a long time.
We could
talking shop. It is interesting though, like with this, everyone's putting out roster projections and lineup projections, and I think on D it's fairly clear. I mean, Harris is probably your 7th D. You also have Callahan. So again, I'm fine. Harris, I'm fine taking a flyer on that. Like I'm okay with that.
But he shoots going into free agent and going into the draft. We're weak on the right side and we need scoring. I think they address scoring and speed at the draft.
Oh, yes.
I also think they should have drafted a goalie. That's just my opinion, but because we knew we were losing Brandon Bussey, but whatever. It's to each their own. But they still didn't. They haven't addressed the right side in free agency. They haven't addressed it anywhere, and which is interesting. And Harris, I think, is hilarious because when I talked about it, I was like, "Oh, I bet you there's going to be someone in my comments that knows him because he's from Mass." 2 people.
Lo and behold,
2 people. I had 2 people say, "Really great guy." I was like, "Okay, that's what I got." I got told he's a really great guy.
There you go.
Sure.
He was before my time with the New England Hockey Journal because he played for Kimball Union. So
I don't know much about him, to be totally honest, but everybody seems to be really happy about this guy. But it does the whole cliche of the Boston Bruins only draft kids that either go to BC or they are from Massachusetts is never going to go away because they continue to do this. I still think if they can find someone for the right side in a trade, I think they need to do it. I think, hey, if you can move Poitras or anybody, just you need help on that right side.
Well, this was going to be my point. Was like, so they go out, they keep Yoki Haru on a short, 3-year, 3x3.
People aren't mad enough about that one, but continue.
Well, what's interesting is like this is my thing, right? Like when I first saw that, I was like, oh man. But then I look at where they're at as a team, as a roster. We talked about there's sort of this middling, retooling, essentially kind of rebuilding team.
100%. I think they are.
3 years, 3 million. 3 million is not insane. No. Like that's the thing. Like, and the cap is going up
big time.
But to your point, that's where if you're going to deal a Poitras and a pick, or a Merkulov or whoever and a pick, right shot D, young, control, who you project high.
Correct.
To me, that's where you're adding. And you need help on the wings. And, Hagens certainly helps you down the middle. But, like, right shot D, because they didn't get that. I thought they were going to get that in the second round. But then in the second round, from picks like 33 to the early 40s, were like all the big right shot D went. So they didn't even have a shot at it. To me, I'm in agreement with you. If you're going to deal Poitras and a prospect, or Poitras and a pick, you do it for a right shot D.
And for everybody like yelling at us right now because we keep saying Poitras, you could add in Merkulov, you could add in
Spitballing.
Lysell, and it's unfortunate, but this is what's going to happen to get this guy. And so if you want, do what we do. Everybody right now, just go into Puckpedia and start looking at teams that have a guy that's coming off an entry-level deal. It's a right shot defenseman on a team that's probably going to move him because they either draft or they're going into the playoffs and they need somebody else into the lineup. That's where the Bruins are going to get this guy. They're going to get him on a team like the Islanders, who lucked out, got first overall pick, so that Noah Dobson became expendable. There's going to be a team like that next year that can't afford to do the entry-level deal on somebody, and the Bruins are going to get lucky and be able to take him. We'll see what happens. And people, Jack Eichel is definitely signing with the Las Vegas Golden Knights.
That dream is long gone.
That dream was long gone about like 3 months ago. So
I was going to say that was never happening.
Definitely happening. Whenever that happens, it happens. But please get that out of your head. The years of being able to get people at UFA are gone. I think that what we saw this year is going to happen continuing over and over and over again, especially after the year before where Nashville's and the Bostons of the world all got burned. And teams are like, well, forget this. We're not doing this anymore. So we're going to sign our guys after their entry-level deals or right before they hit UFA. And that's about it. And whatever's left is just going to be pieces. So I don't see what they need to make trades. That's the only way to fix this team.
Trading and drafting.
Yeah.
Or your two drafting is the biggest, and then trading's right after. A Bleacher Report put out an Instagram post, like a 10-slide one, and it was like, look at the free agent class next year. It's like Eichel, Kaprizov, McDavid, it's like Panarin. 95% of those guys are re-signed throughout this season. Like, you think McDavid's really hitting free agency? Jack Eichel has a perfect spot in Vegas. He has Mitch Marner now on his right. He's got Noah Hanifin. Like,
his favorite coach is Bruce Cassidy. He said he changed his career. Yeah, he's going to leave.
He's coming back.
And Rasmus Anderson, he's a right shot defenseman. He ain't coming to Boston. What did he just say in Calgary? I only want to go to Vegas. So if you don't trade me, I'm just going to sign there next year. So Vegas already knows that Rasmus Anderson wants to play for them next year, and they don't even have to try and go get him. If he doesn't want to come, sure, we'll get you the next year.
That really does show you the value of saying we're just going to be all in all the time. And Vegas is a great spot. Guys love it. It's a fun fan base, and it's a great arena and all those different things. But they're always all in. You know, when you go to Vegas, you're not going to be randomly rebuilding the next year or retooling the year after. Like, you're contending. And now that you have Marner and Eichel and Hanifin and all these guys locked up, I don't blame guys for wanting to go to Vegas. And you have Bruce Cassidy. Like, it's a good organization. Like, if I'm a player, I get to go live in Vegas. I get to go live in nice weather all season or all year and a good team. Why would I not go to Vegas?
No tax state.
Also that.
Well,
Florida's so
a big
popular
deal
right now.
Well, and so is Dallas and eventually, Nashville. But I look at everybody was like, oh, the Bruins need to do this. No one was coming here. Everybody was like, oh, they got to go get Nikolai Ehlers. There was no way Nikolai Ehlers was coming here unless the Bruins wanted to overpay. They just had to overpay to get Tanner Jeannot.
Yeah.
According to Frank Silva, there was 12 teams. They just had to overpay on term and dollar NAAV to get Tanner Jeannot. They would have had to have paid a guy like Brock Besser like $10 million to come. They had a chance. The only one they had a chance on, and I'll still say this, if Marchand doesn't re-sign with the Florida Panthers, I was 100% sure he was coming back. And I know we talked about it, but I was just like, way too many things were telling me, tea leaves, I'll call them, that he was coming back. Like, he was no chance he was coming to Toronto. He was just going to come back to Boston. And I was like, oh my God. So when I started seeing it on the internet, I'm like, oh no, it's going to happen.
Well, yeah. Because, I saw Pierre LeBrun tweet on, I think it was Sunday, like, oh, Bruins and Maple Leafs, if the Panthers don't re-sign him. And I'm like, oh boy. All right. And then, like, there were even, like, this was never reported, but like Utah had a ton of money and they would have wanted a culture guy. I think he wanted to stay on the East Coast, but like, they probably would have overpaid for a guy like Marchand. I completely agree with you on this free agent class. I was never married to any of these guys except for Marner. I love to piss people off with the Mitch Marner stuff. Obviously, as I said then, he was never going to actually come here, but you should
not chance in hell.
But Ehlers, Ekblad, Besser, I'm not dying for those guys long term. Like, I just wasn't. I mean, Ekblad helps you in the short term, but that's a long contract. He was 8 times 6.1. Like, he ended up signing for way less AAV than I thought it actually get.
Ridiculous less, but like Oddly enough, it was the Spitting Chicklets podcast when I was like, they're all coming back. When they all did that pool interview and they're all like, we're all coming back. And I'm just like, Marchand is one thing. Marchand is he's not a liar.
No.
And he said at that bar when he was at the elbow room and someone was filming and he didn't realize it, and he was like, I'll be back. For one, we're going for another one. We're going to win 4 cups. He said, I'll be back. And then he said it again on Spitting Chicklets. He was going to be back. He knew he was back. They were just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, he was coming back. When Bennett said, Bennett told his deal at a bar, he knew like a week ago. I still laugh about the whole tampering thing that they talked about with Martyr, because I still go back to the Montador interview on Spitting Chicklets from last year, where he said he won the Stanley Cup and his agent was already talking about him going to Seattle. When he goes, it was the craziest thing ever. We're at the elbow room that night, and my agent's texting me about Seattle's offer, and I was like, okay. But the NHL's like, we're going to make an example of the Las Vegas Golden Knights, when Montador literally just gaslit everybody and was like, well, I got a text the night before, because they all do. But then Toronto extorts to get.
That was hilarious.
I look at the Boston Bruins and I don't see doom and gloom. I don't. Everybody's all freaking out about this team, and that's fine. If you can get over the fact that they're not going to make the playoffs, and if they do, it's gravy, then your expectations change and you're going to be okay, because the Boston Bruins aren't in the Detroit Red Wings, even the Montreal Canadiens, when their rebuild just took too damn long. I think Hagens jump-started them, and it's phenomenal. They got so damn lucky being able to draft him at 7, but they also got lucky in a bad draft year. The top 8 players were centermen, and they got one of them. Let's be honest. If they didn't get Hagens, they were going to get Roger McQueen, because we all know that's who they were going to pick. If it was, because that's just the Boston Bruins. And he looks great too already in camp, but that's fine. This is development camp. And I wanted to ask you questions about that after, but development camp is what it is.
Well, I wanted to say about McQueen, from what I heard, I don't think McQueen was ever a big guy for them.
Really?
He was. That's what I'd heard. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Like, and I was stunned.
Who'd they take out? Bradley Martin. They wanted him.
Brady Martin.
They definitely wanted him. The
I
farm
think
boy.
Martin would have been a guy. That would have been a real debate.
Real bad. I think that him and Caleb Desnoyers. I think Desnoyers was their number 1 choice. That's who, when they originally had their pick number 5, I think that's who they thought they were getting, because they scouted him more than anybody else. And then when they moved down, all of a sudden I was like, okay. Then I thought it was Brady Martin. I thought that's who they were going to get, because I don't think they ever thought they were going to get James Hagens. Otherwise, his name would have been on the back of his jersey.
I completely agree. And that's what stunned me too, was like, I think they were stunned. I was stunned. And I agree with you on the not doom and gloom, because I was at dev camp all week this week, and they are not the 30th ranked prospect pool anymore. Like, James Hagens is your number 1, clearly. But then, again, like, Dean Letourneau actually had a pretty good prospect camp. Not saying he's going to be anything, but like, he actually had a pretty damn good dev camp. He was really good and noticeable.
Didn't know he broke his hand last year
on Thursday. I didn't either. But like, again, you have guys like Will Zellers. This 3rd rounder from this year, Cooper Simpson, had a really good dev camp. Like, that might be something. Not saying that it's going to be, but like,
the defenseman that didn't even have a pitcher, all of a sudden we find out he's a Bruins fan for life, and the guy's amazing. Where did that come from?
Court, this kid's good.
That's
like,
what
this
I'm
is
saying.
this is a smoother skating Mason Lowry. That's what I saw. Like, not saying he's going to pan out, nothing, but that kid knows how to handle a puck. Good skater. Has a
Johansson supposedly looked good. Like, they had a lot of guys that were like, okay, which is a lot better than last year, when everybody was talking about lunch pail guys. Like, he's going to be a 4th liner. Like, that was the most hilarious thing. All the excitement that came out of development camp last year. I'm like, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel.
And that's how they've drafted. They've drafted for guys that have higher floors instead of higher ceilings. And I even think, like, when we talk about guys like Poitras, and Lysell doesn't really fit in this set as much, but the younger guys that I think have been, top prospects for the Bruins in years past, it's been guys who it's like, oh, he'll be a 3rd liner in the NHL. Oh, maybe he's a 2nd liner. We'll see. And whereas I think it's changed now. Like, they had a 1st this year. They had 2 seconds. You get Will Moore, who's his consolidated ranking was much higher than where he ended up going at 51. And it's like, you're starting to you have legitimate prospects here. You add Fraser Mitten and Will Zellers at the deadline, who, by the way, Will Zellers, amazing kid, amazing personality.
Sounds like it.
Like, really fun to talk to, loves talking, and just on the ice, incredible patience. Like, Court, I always say with kids, like, he's not the best skater, but when you can slow a game down, that's almost translatable to any level, I find, where that patience, that ability to just let the game come to you, that's, you can project that. And Zellers has that. And honestly, Cooper Simpson has that as well, where it's just like that ability to slow a game down, doing what you want, letting people react to you instead of you reacting to the game. Those two seem to have it. Now, again, not saying these kids are going to be, Jake Gensel and friggin' Taylor Hall, but the future is not bleak. There is legitimate reason to be excited for the future. This coming season, I don't know if I'd put that there.
Yeah.
As you said, though, it's you want to see, can Elias Lindholm be a 60-plus point guy? Is that too much to ask? Like, that's what you're looking. Can Jeremy Swayman get back on track this year? And then I think in 26, 27 is when you are, Hagens comes in most likely, and
I
it's
think
sort of like
that's
that
a foregone
2017
conclusion. He comes in that next year.
It certainly feels that way.
If they make the playoffs, he plays. He'll be here. He'll McAvoy. They'll burn a year because his interview. I'm sure you were there when they talked to him today. I was like, he is wanting to make this team this year. If he talks one more time about, though, that he's 190 pounds, I think I might lose respect for the man. Like, stop saying that. Like, that's like, I'm 190 pounds. I'm going to make this team. That is not the threshold to make the NHL. Please stop talking about it. But he won't stop talking about it.
But I will give him this. The size isn't as big a thing with him. He did throw some hits around, like in the battle drills. He's not small. Like, he's 5'10".
He's got chutzpah,
but he's got muscle. He's got muscle. And I think that's an encouraging thing. And it hasn't taken away from his speed, hasn't taken away from his hands. So I'm with you. Like, you mentioned this earlier. Like, I think at BC this year, he's a 50, 60 point guy.
I wouldn't even doubt it. So, that BC, so your number one center is Hagens.
Yep.
Your number two center is Moore.
It's funny. Well, I was talking about this with Connor.
Okay.
Like, Will Moore potentially. They've brought in. I think they're bringing in some CHL kids as well. I don't have it in front of me, but like, could one of them step in?
All on the radio here in Ontario. It's all about all the kids that are going to jump ship and go to the United States for hockey.
That's what's happening. Yes, we're covering that heavily at New England Hockey
for their last year. What they want to do is some of them, if they haven't been drafted, they want to get the loophole. So they talked about this on the radio yesterday here in Toronto. These kids who haven't been drafted, if they didn't get drafted and they want to hop back in, they can go play in college, get drafted, and now they can control their own destiny and where they play.
Yeah. And Court, this is the other thing that I think people didn't fully realize with this draft class. Like, okay, James Hagens didn't have the same year as Will Smith, Ryan Leonard, all those, former freshmen, and he had 37 points in 37 games, which is actually really good for a kid who started the year as a 17-year-old. But college is now looked at as a higher level than the OHL or the Dub or the Q, obviously. And it's like, because these kids are trying to go to the NCAA. Like, the NCAA used to be a developmental type league. It's not that anymore. It isn't. Like, you have the best of the best looking to come there. Gavin McKenna is trying to go there next season. Like,
as a Canadian, hold your horses. But
I know.
I see it more as you're going to get all the guys that get passed up in the draft. And they're like, well, I'm not going to get passed up my next time. I'm going to go play college, and then I'm going to get my ticket, and that's going to get me in, because there's a strong pattern with certain teams in the NHL that are drafting college kids only. And I think the players are seeing it now, so they're going because they're seeing where kids are going to get drafted. I do think the OHL is a little bit watered down, and I think a lot of that has to do with the way the kids are coming in. The kids are coming in way too young in the OHL. I just think they come in too young. So that
I think they're coming in young everywhere, though. I mean, I understand James Hagens this week saying, oh God, I want to be a Bruin, all these different things. I get it. But I hope that's just talk, because I hope he understands that you can't skip levels. You can't. Like, development takes a different path for everybody. And for him, it's very, very clear that a second year at BC is needed. And when you start jumping over things, like I always use Cale Makar as the example. If Cale had just gone to Colorado after his freshman year, I'm not sure we're seeing the Cale Makar that we see now. I'm
Fair.
not.
Yeah.
And like that to me is the thing. And back to my point, I'm not trying to diss the OHL or anything.
No, I know. I just had to, as a Canadian, I couldn't let it go.
I get it. But I also think it just, I don't know if people viewed Hagens' season fully correctly. And I'm not saying he had an amazing year. Like I keep going back to, like, I saw him at the Beanpot and I didn't really notice him much in either of those games. And I think that's important to note. But he didn't have a bad year. Like, hearing Felger be like, oh, he had a bad year. It's like, no, he didn't. He had a really good year.
Can I ask for everybody listening and yourself, how is it that he's allowed to be on the radio and no one just laughs at him? If in Canadian radio, that doesn't work. Like, we don't have the shock jock for sports. It just doesn't work. No one gives a damn because we get Elliot Friedman and Jeff. Like, that's who we get on the radio. Everybody that you're like, oh, that's the guy that we're listening to for stuff. Well, that's my radio. Like, that's every day.
It's funny because I listen to it and laugh, but there is a large segment of Boston fans who like, and it's not like, I'm not blaming them.
No,
they're in the car for 2 hours. They're 1 hour drive home and they're listening to that. And then they go home and they, they're not reading a bunch of sports stories or listening to podcasts. They just listen. They turn on the radio and listen. And that's how they get their information. And so they think, oh my God, BC stinks. Like, Hagens is terrible. All they do is draft local kids. And that's how that happens. And like, it's just on the radio, I think if it was a standalone Bruins podcast, I don't think Bruins fans would be seeking it out, but it's on the radio. So you listen. And that's, I guess, how that works. So I always find
it's very intriguing to me. It's very intriguing.
Court, what annoys me is when people say, God, there's not enough like Bruins content. There's not enough Bruins talk out there, because the rate 98.5 and EEI don't spend a ton of time on it on the air.
They don't.
I always want to be like, I always want to be like, almost every car now has Apple CarPlay or Bluetooth, or you can hook up your phone to it. And there are a million Bruins podcasts. And there are, again, there's like Bruins Diehards, like the YouTube channel that you can watch and consume. And your videos are like 10 minutes or less oftentimes.
Yep.
Quick and easy. And that to me always, I never, like, you can plug your phone in. Like, I don't know.
But like for me, like I could turn on the radio and pretty much guarantee that I'm going to get hockey no matter what, any time of the year. But I get a lot of Leaf stuff out here. So
that's right.
I will, in the morning, I'll be like, okay, JD Buckus, I think he does a great job. Even though he's a huge homer, that's fine. It's interesting here in Toronto how they, the narrative on what they're doing to Mitch Marner. It's probably the funniest thing I've ever seen because
I saw Scott Wheeler's tweet. And I got a kick out.
My God. I was just like, what is wrong with you people? You are dashing this guy for exactly what you love and praise Aston Matthews for is probably the funniest thing I've ever seen. Like, dude, no one see the irony of like, this guy doesn't show up in the playoffs, but this guy right here who doesn't show up in the playoffs, even worse, he's my best. He's the best.
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with you? But I personally, I listen to a Bruins podcast. I'll listen to What Chaos or even YouTube. You can listen to it like it's a radio. Like I'll do that, like the hockey guy and stuff. That's what I listen to because
the hockey guy, great. He's the one with the whiteboard, right?
And he's in Vancouver. Very nice guy. I do that myself because you can get the content. But when I'm in Boston and stuff like that, which once a year I come there, I find it discouraging because I think Boston is a hockey town. You have some of the best college hockey in the world is in Boston. You have a fan base that loves their hockey team, yet your TV is like ESPN, which is, you might as well just not like it's terrible. TNT's great. I think those people are doing a great job. I think where Ty is on the Sports Hub, I feel bad. Like I always see Ty and I'm like, you have one of the smartest hockey minds in all of Boston and you don't put him on the radio.
I will never get
enough.
I will never get it.
I will use the word enough.
I will never understand.
His live reaction of the Tanner Jeannot signing is probably the best thing I've ever seen.
That was awesome. And I don't understand. I don't get it either. I get that it used to be a Patriots town here, but the Patriots haven't been interesting in years. And that's what I don't fully grasp. But the good thing is, like, Court, with you with Bruins Diehards, you have a really good group of fans that are a large group that watch your content. When you come on here, all the comments are like, "We love Court. Court's awesome." And
I've
we
seen that.
thankfully at Bruins Ringside here on YouTube, like a lot of dedicated people that watch every episode and comment, and it's awesome. And make sure to go subscribe to both Bruins Diehards and Bruins Ringside. But like I don't understand it, but I guess in the grand scheme of all of the 4 sports teams, like I think they look at it as, well, it's the 4th team in town, which I think is wrong.
But the Bruins are one of the number 1 selling merchandise in all of the NHL. The reason, and people
I
get
agree.
annoyed, and in Toronto, they say it all the time. Well, I know we're having an outdoor game. Must be Boston and Chicago. The reason this continues to happen is, one, Boston's one of the biggest TV markets. Unfortunately, like the Stanley Cup Finals was great and all, but the ratings weren't that good. If the Boston Bruins are in the Stanley Cup Finals, the ratings are through the roof.
Yep.
This is what I know. Boston has one of the biggest fan bases across all of North America. I would almost say one of the biggest in the world. They always say the Rangers, and I disagree, because here in Toronto, no one cares about the Rangers. It's definitely like the Toronto Maple Leafs, but Boston still has a contingency, Montreal Canadiens. And I find it very weird that at the people were saying, at the free agents this year, like they didn't want to come here. And I believe it. There's that new millionaire tax that kicked in last year that I guess a lot of people are realizing it's an extra 4%. So that's a lot of money that's coming off your paycheck when you're coming here to Boston. But you still have the guys when they do sign here, like, as much as we're dogging on Tanner Jeannot, his interview, like, he said all the right things. Viktor Arvidsson, they all said the right things. Like, this is an historic franchise. We want to come here. So I do think with the influx of youth that you saw at development camp that you're all excited about, and I will say this, as someone that can't go to development camp, and as of right now, because not a lot of Canadians, we're not coming to the United States for a while. It is what it is. And I was planning originally coming this year. I'm sensing a different excitement from development camp this year than I think I've seen since McAvoy. Like, since we heard about all these other guys that were coming, because the positivity that comes from yourself and it's all positive vibes coming out of development camp. And you've mentioned, but I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to just turn the hat here.
Ooh.
You've mentioned some couple guys, but who is the one that you were like, I didn't see that coming? Like, who's the guy that we're like, okay, like, he's coming out there. You watch them every day. Who's the guy that like, I didn't see that coming?
Like at dev camp?
Yeah.
Blenar. Didn't know who this kid was. Like, who is he? Elite Prospects takes like 5 minutes to find him.
The Bruins couldn't even put a photo in his draft thing.
Exactly. And to me, like, I look at him and I'm like, I was saying this to Mark Diver. In today's day and age with the internet, it's so rare to find like a diamond in the rough, like a guy that no one else was looking at, no one else knew. He wasn't even taken in the CHL imports draft. Like, that to me, his
Where's
abilities.
He playing next year?
I don't think it's decided yet. Don't quote me on that, but I don't believe it's decided yet.
Is it a university?
No, I think it's probably going to be somewhere in junior.
Okay.
But to me, he was someone that I did like, who is this? And suddenly he's out there dangling, great skater, like clearly raw as hell, like needs work for sure. But like the foundation's there of like, all right, there's something to build on here. I get why they drafted him. Simpson's another one out of Minnesota high school hockey this year. Played, I think, 9 games with Tri-City in the USHL, scored 7 goals after the season ended. Like, he was what surprises me, Court, is like these kids come from, like, rarely do kids come from like the prep level or the high school level and they jump right into a dev camp. And usually if they do, they can be a little hesitant because it's a big freaking jump.
Like Letourneau last year.
And one of the things on Simpson that I kept hearing was he sort of got ice in his veins, like in the sense that he doesn't really like feel anything. He just plays his game. No matter who he's playing against, he's going to do his thing. And he did that. He'd cut to the middle with defenseman bearing down on him, and he would calmly protect the puck and look for an outlet pass or look for a lane to the net. And his just ability to play his own game and play his role and his style, I think there's something there. Like, and again, I can't say it enough. I don't want to sit here and proclaim that these are NHL guys, but in the past bunch of years, I was at all those dev camps where it was, as you said, well, this guy's going to be a good 4th liner. Oh, this guy could maybe be something. This is the number 1 center, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's different now. in 1 year, and I give them credit. Like they kept their picks, they added more, they went out and traded for prospects, and that's why, like we keep saying, like this Bruins regular season coming up is not going to be fun and high flying, but if you can get through this year, things are greener in the future. Whether it's obviously Hagens, Will Moore is going to probably take
Zellers.
2 years at BC. Zellers, like I was saying to Connor today, what's Zellers at North Dakota? Probably 2 years. Will Moore's probably 2 years, maybe 3 at BC. Chris Pelosi looked a lot better. Again, I think he projects more as like a middle 6, potentially bottom 6 center, but like he looked a lot better. I also say Letourneau looked a lot better. Like, and I said it earlier in the show, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, Dean Letourneau, what a steal. They nailed the pick. But he at least should be someone productive at BC next year if he's not buried in the lineup. Like, he's got great hands. He was way more physical this year than last year. He was, going up against Kostadinsky.
Well, he had a broken hand last year. We just didn't know.
It's a thing. That's the thing. But so, yeah, like if Letourneau, like Connor and I were talking about this at Dev Camp, if Dean Letourneau ends up being something, like your prospect pool, it's all different now.
Like if he's a third line center for the future, you're laughing.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I mean,
big third line, turn him into a 2-way guy who just chips away at everybody and melts you down.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why, like you said it perfect with like, the vibes are higher with the prospects. That's where the good vibes.
So would you lose? Does that mean we're going to lose Pastrnak? Because now we could get into the nasty conversation because it's a real one. Because everybody's like, oh, this and that. I'm like, but if you're David Pastrnak, do you want to wait? Because I look at this team, I think Don Sweeney's going to he's got 2 years, right? He's a dead man walking. Let's be honest. Regardless of what, he's a dead man walking unless they figure it out. So if you're Don Sweeney, I was looking at names. So here's some names. So there's Brandt Clark and there's Nick Lundqvist, who's out of Dallas. 2 right shot defensemen that are actually good, but they're both on expiring deals and their teams are going to have a hard time re-signing them. We already know Brandt Clark's, they're trying to trade him because they know LA is like, oh, we can't figure this one out. It's too hard to sign. Brandt Clark's a puck moving D. I think he's the perfect guy. Where the Boston Bruins
make a lot of sense.
He makes way too much sense. So you look at that, the Boston Bruins could make deals with the guys that they know aren't going to make it this year. We've got all these guys. We got Lonsell. We haven't even talked about him. Like that's the guy I'm going to be doing a video on. That guy could make the Bruins this year. We haven't even talked about him.
Lysell?
What's his name? He played in the
Luck
World.
Mellis.
Luck Mellis. I say it always. Everybody's forgetting about the guy that Wayne Gretzky was saying, look, well, one of the best players in the tournament.
I know.
We're all forgetting about this guy.
And he's a UMass guy like me.
But I'm saying I'm laughing at all the rosters everybody's putting out right now. And I still think it's too early because you still need to have these guys go to camp. But this is the first time where I look at, from an outsider's perspective, just watching you guys cover it and looking at everything and watching all the videos everybody's posting, which I love. And that's, as a Bruins fan, like you don't just use Twitter, you could find out everything you want. Like everything is there. And I'm watching all these videos. This is the first time I was like, they're actual players. Usually I see these videos. I'm like, come on, guys. I think you're just saying this guy's good when they're not really good, but that's fine. But I'm watching it. I'm like, oh my God, like these guys could be something. And I look at the future of the Bruins and I start slotting in. And I'm like, okay, who's going to be gone? Now, is David Pastrnak ever going to get to play with James Hagens?
Yes.
I would hope so. But if you're going to lose one more year, I'm just trying to have a hypothetical here.
I like this because I've been thinking about this too, in the sense, and I've said this for a long time of like, he's in his prime. You can't waste these prime years. Now, if they're straight up with him and they get him on
29-30, we got time.
And but here's the thing. If they're straight up with him and they get him on board and say, look, David, it's going to be a year of middle of the pack to lower in the pack in the NHL, but James Hagen's going to come in next year. He's going to be your center. Like there's reason for hope. We're going to, I'm speaking as the Bruins. We're going to be back in it in 2 years in the playoff picture. Like, and then you're going to get the infusion of guys like Zellers. I mean, you even think about the Bruins in like 2017-18, Bjork, DeBrusk, McAvoy coming up. You had Carlo, who had a year under his belt. You also had the Bergerons, the Marchands, the Charas, the Rasks. Like, you did have that. They endured that. Yes, completely. And And so with Pastrnak, it's like, if you're going to give him the C, which you should,
Yeah, I
endure a
think
year
that's
of
a
this.
foregone conclusion at this point. I think
It
they
should
usually
be.
do it right before training camp, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think they'll announce it. I'm on Puckpedia, and for everybody listening, if you want to know, this is what we all use. Just go to Puckpedia. So you have McAvoy, Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, David Pastrnak, and Elias Lindholm, and Morgan Geekie all locked in till 29-30. Every single one of them.
And
And
again,
Jeremy Swayman. Every single one of their core, and I say this is their core, locked in till 29-30. So there's your window. There's your window.
It's not insane to think that they will be competitive during that time. Not right now, not 25, 26.
I think they could be as competitive in early as next year, not this year. I don't think it's
I
not
agree.
this year. I think as Hagens is what we all think he is. And you have convinced me. I'm telling you, I make the jokes about how you should get the t-shirts and all that, and I think you should. I thought about putting a Bruins Diehards t-shirt where it says James Hagens and just has your photo. But I was like, that's only for me and it's funny. But
no one's buying that.
I would. I'd wear it in Boston.
I'd buy some just for fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. But I look at it. If James Hagen is what he is, so say he's your second line center next year, and we move on from Casey Middlestat, like we all know what's going to happen. His deal expires next year. So I'm just looking at the future. I don't think Casey Middlestat's the future unless he changes, because he wasn't strong on the puck. He didn't play Boston Bruins hockey, so he's got to change the way he plays the game to stay a Boston Bruin next year. And I think Boston Bruins hockey still exists, but it's going to in a different way. We talked about toughness. I look at the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers don't fight people.
No,
they're tough because they're tough on the forecheck. They piss you off and they don't care, and they just play the game the right way. Oh my God, I can't believe I did it.
Oh, you did it.
It was in my brain. But
you
that's how they play the game. They are very good at their zone.
They get under skins and they don't retaliate.
And they're fast. They're very fast. So I look at the Boston Bruins, Casey Middlestat. All right, we're gone. Okay, so your future is Elias Lindholm, James Hagens next year is your second line center, and then Fraser Minton is your third line center, and then Kastelik. I like Kastelik as your fourth line center all day long. I think he does a phenomenal job because he does chip in on the offensive side and he's good net front presence. I think it just makes more sense. And eventually Lindholm becomes your second line center and Hagens becomes your first line center when him and Pastrnak ultimately have their come to Jesus moment and they're amazing together. So there's your future down the middle. As much as we've said for years, the Bruins need center. If they can turn Minton into that two-way guy, they don't need anybody. Their centers they're good. So then that tells me, okay, he may be a center or they move him over the wing. Like, I look at everything that's happening and I'm like, there is a lot of optimism, especially if you look at that back end locked up. They can go out and trade one of their pieces that they have right now and get someone who shoots on the right side that's young, like the guy I mentioned at Dallas or Brandt Clark. You have a Zadorov. It's a pretty good defense. And you have Swayman will be better. Let's be honest, he will be.
Their defense is good.
This is
one more piece. But the other thing, Court, and you hit on this, like all those guys you mentioned, Geekie, Pastrnak, McAvoy, Swayman, Zadorov, the Lindholms, all them, they're locked up till 29-30, right? Like they're all locked up at least through then. The core that's going to supplement that core is this next young wave. It's Hagens, it's Zellers, it's Moore, it's Pelosi, Simpson,
whoever they
Blenard.
draft with their 2 first-round picks next year. And if they trade any one of those, I'd be pissed. You have 2 the following year too. You can move one of those.
I was gonna say, yeah. Would you deal a 26 first for if it got you one of like Brandt Clark or one of those right shot D? You wouldn't do it?
No, I don't think. I think with the team the way they are, you do not trade that Boston Bruins first round pick. That draft next year is going to be the best draft since the Connor McDavid draft. So
really, I've seen some write-ups, but I haven't seen like an official,
it's like the best draft since the Connor McDavid. Like it's good. Like there's a lot of talent in that draft. And who says we can't be the Islanders and move up to number 1?
No, I think it's absolutely possible. And you saw it this year. They get porked with the 7th pick, but you get lucky and Hagens falls to you. But that's my biggest thing is this is the first year where it's like I'm watching these guys on the ice, Zellers, Hagens, Moore, all of them, and even Letourneau. And it's like, okay, like those are going to be the guys, at least, guys on this ice are going to be who supplements the guys at the NHL level in a year plus, right? Like once Hagens comes up, most likely for that 25, 26, or excuse me, for the 26-27 season, when he comes up then, that's likely going to start the wave of like Zellers and Moore maybe come in the year after. And when does Letourneau come in? And Pelosi, what is he? And
See,
like
I just got you to trade
Glenwald.
Matthew Poitras.
That,
Look how
you
I
did.
went from the beginning. You have now traded Matthew Poitras.
That's right. Well, that where's he fit?
He doesn't.
Where's he fit?
And if Lysell doesn't make the team, he don't fit either. If he doesn't make it out of camp, it doesn't take that third line right wing spot. You move on from him and you use his asset to get something, and it is what it is. You just move on.
I traded Lysell, Geekie, and a first in franchise mode for Will Smith of the Sharks, and Will Smith was essentially my James Hagens, and he's now my number one center for the Bruins. That's my like
You
summer
gave
project.
up way too much for Will Smith, but that's fine.
No, kidding me? He's from Lexington.
Oh my God, I know everybody loves him so much, but he is going to be. He is the next Chris Kunitz. He is playing with Macklin Celebrini. Good for you, buddy. He's good.
Maybe.
I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not trying to hit on his talent, but I think Macklin Celebrini is close to a generational talent. I think he's phenomenal.
Completely agree.
He's not Connor McDavid, but he is Joe Sakic. I think it's a better comparison. He's Joe Sakic, Jonathan Toews. He's that good. He could carry his team. And now their 1-2 punches him and Misa is just. And Misa takes 77 off. That should be banned. But anyways,
and Smith will play with one of them, I would assume. They're not going to
play with Macklin Celebrini. The amount of social media posts between the two of them now, just like the Bruins. You talked about the defenseman. The Bruins see something because they focused on him social media wise for the last couple of days.
Blanar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they see something.
There's something there. There's something there.
The PR team is very good at what they do. Russo does a phenomenal job. He does a good job. They do a very good job over there. And they see when a guy has it and when they don't. And last year, they barely covered any of the guys. I was laughing.
Well, again, like Court, it's been years with Dev Camp where it just is like, oh, not much. I remember walking away the last 2 years being like, man, there's like nothing here. But again, this is the thing though, right? Like there are a lot of guys who were at those past 2 Dev Camps at this one. They're older, they're more mature, and they're not looked at as highly upon, right? Like Letourneau is not the number one center prospect in the pool anymore. He's like
elite prospects made that joke. We can't make fun of the Boston Bruins anymore. Like that's the best joke after the draft. Like the Boston Bruins got rated as one of the best teams at the trade deadline. Everybody said they made the best deals. We're getting kicked in the teeth about Tanner Jeannot, and we should. Like I'll be honest, everybody in Toronto is making fun of the Boston Bruins right now, and that's even with Mitch Marner leaving for nothing. And Bruins are still getting made fun of. But they're picked as one of the teams that did best at the draft. The Islanders killed it. They did. But they're saying, and this is all conjecture because you don't know what these kids are going to be into, but for the first time ever, the Bruins next year, people, when they do the elite prospects, they already made the joke. They're going to be in the top 15 in prospects for the first time in forever.
And if they don't trade those 2 firsts next year, and they
have 2 the following year. So that's right. This. The Boston Bruins have set themselves up that in the next, including this year that just happened, the next 3 drafts, they can change the fate of the franchise.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yeah.
They can change the fate of the franchise. They don't have to be the Philadelphia Flyers. They don't have to be the Detroit Red Wings. They don't even have to be the Montreal Canadiens who just stumbled out of the block way too many times. They'll be able to change the fate of their franchise because all those teams, they did a total rebuild. He kind of did. He almost did like what's in between a retool and a rebuild. That's what Sweeney did, but he's still going to be able to keep McAvoy, Swayman, Pasternak, Geekie, Lindholm, and bring in these pieces. And the Boston Bruins in the next 3 years are going to be one of the best teams in the league all over again because Florida, Marchand's going to be 40. They're going to be old. Tampa's going to be old. Like Vasilevsky, it's just his hips are bad. And like they're just old. And Boston will be able to jump right back in there. They'll be able to jump right back in there.
I completely agree. I think drafting Hagens at 7 changed the vibe of the franchise.
100%.
And these coming picks this year, the next couple of years,
I think Zellers
changed the fate of it.
Changed my view. When they got Zellers in that Coyle deal, I was like, oh, he's cooking. Like he's doing this. He's cooking right now.
He's good.
Everybody says that we're always so negative. Us who do, I do YouTube, you do the media side. We're negative. Well, I just spent the last 10 minutes being extremely positive about the future of the Boston Bruins. And I've been negative about that for 10 years.
I agree. I'll make fun of the present, but I will rip on the present, but I will be very
just
positive.
Tanner Jeannot. And it's no offense to him.
Good for him for getting a 5-year deal and $3.4 million. Good for him. Same with
guy's
Trent
amazing.
Frederick. 8 years
Dude,
in one
Trent
spot. Good
Frederick.
for Trent Frederick.
What a joke he is.
Crazy.
Oh my God, he's
I
a
think this
terrible
is where
player.
we end, Court.
Yeah,
Court,
okay.
I think we nailed it.
Yeah,
I
we
think
were positive. We ended on a positive note.
ended on a
Besides
great
my
positive note.
Trent Frederick comment, but I'll keep it there. Yeah, Michael K, you did a great job, buddy. You earned that. You earned that percentage.
He did. If I'm a player coming up, I'm going to him. Court, this is always fun. We'll have to do this again at some point throughout the summer.
Yep.
Bruins Diehards, subscribe there. What can people look forward to from you?
I'll be covering anything that happens in the news. And for the next little bit, I am away next week in Ottawa, but I do have some videos in the can. So I'm going to be doing some prospect profiles and so on and so forth. But I'm going to be in the beautiful, city of Ottawa next week, having some good time with family, maybe talking some hockey with certain people, but I'll be having a good time.
That's right. That's right, Court.
Mhm.
Always a pleasure, my friend. This is always
Thank you.
fun. An hour and 10 minutes. My God.
We did it.
We can talk. We can talk. That's Court Lalonde. I'm Evan Marinofsky, you Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.